What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Mow Money, Mow Problems podcast, where we sit down with successful green industry business owners and just have a conversation about their journey, their business, their successes, their struggles, and just get some insight from all of the above. My name is Matt Foreman, owner of Lawn and Land Marketing, and today we are joined by Scott of Greener Grass out in Canton, Ohio. Scott, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely, Matt. Pleasure to be here.
I wanted to just kind of get a little bit about you, your business, so we can just have a general kickoff about who you are, what you do, and as it relates to your area as well. So go ahead, tell everybody a little bit about you and Greener Grass.
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Canton, Ohio, and went to school down in Cincinnati, where I got a degree in horticultural science and a certificate in entrepreneurship, and then relocated back to Canton after about 10 years down in Cincy. And then after a couple of years working for another company here, I decided to go out on my own and start Greener Grass. And we focus on providing seasonal fertilization, weed control, and pest control programs for folks. But we do so using primarily organic products instead of, the traditional chemical-based approach that's, common across the industry.
Awesome. You said you went and got a degree in entrepreneurship. Is that right?
Certificate, yeah.
A certificate. Okay. So having obviously pursued this industry, what kind of benefits have you seen with that? Like the whole like going the entrepreneurial route. Obviously, people think, okay, business management, figure out a business. I mean, people can obviously do this without having a certificate or a degree in entrepreneurship. Did that
Sure.
kind of help spark this along?
Yeah, I mean, it did a little bit. I mean, some business management, those types of courses are a little bit more, is a little bit more rigid. The entrepreneurship was more just like initial business planning, how to get funding, how to, get something, off the ground and up and running, as opposed to, stepping into an organization that's already, well put together. So it was, helpful, to be thinking and have that kind of mindset, through the years when I was working for some other companies, thinking what it would be like to get a company started, how I would do that on my own, and then eventually, how I went out and get it on my own.
The other companies that you worked for, what were they also in the green space?
Yeah, so when I was in school at the University of Cincinnati, I worked for a pretty small company there for almost 10 years. Most of the time that I lived in Cincinnati, they did mowing, maintenance, landscape installation. We had a kind of a big focus in new turf installation and erosion control. Did a lot of hydro seeding, seed and straw, sod installation, grading work, stuff like that. And it was a small company, max was like 10 employees at the biggest that the company ever was.
What was your role there?
Started out as a laborer and then, worked my way up to basically a project manager. And then at one point we had three different crews that we were running. And I was kind of in charge of the daily operations for, making sure the other couple crews were on task and doing their thing. And then also managing the project that I was in charge of at that time.
Gotcha. Oh, so how did the transition go? Okay, so you're working with this company, you're obviously moving up the ranks, and I'm assuming you had your "I could do this myself" moment. How did that work? That transition go?
Well, that actually didn't happen, with that company. So that company
Okay.
was in Cincinnati. And then my wife and I made the decision to move back to Canton, Ohio.
Okay.
And at that point, I've been thinking about starting my own company, through the years. And we moved back here. And I actually interviewed with the largest companies in the area that I could find and ended up taking a position with one of those companies as a landscape project manager because I wanted to kind of see what it was like to, I guess, climb the corporate ladder, within the green industry because it wasn't really available with
Mhm.
the small scale of the company that I was at. So I took on that position and worked there for a total of about 4 years and was offered a promotion to become a field supervisor. And that was right around the time when my wife and I decided that we might want to venture out on our own. And I think the aha moment that you just asked about was when I was offered that quote unquote promotion to become a field supervisor. I realized that I was going to be working more hours and basically was offered the same amount of money as what I was in the field, and I felt like my earnings were just going to kind of be capped there. And so my climb of the corporate ladder in the green industry was rather short, is what I realized. There wasn't a whole lot of room, to advance. And this was, a company that was making, $15 million at a time with multiple locations. And I felt like
Oh.
there wasn't really a lot of opportunity, to go beyond that, that role. So we were kind of looking, to create our own opportunity at that point.
So you decided to take the leap of faith as the entrepreneur degree, certificate told you to start the business. What what was that initial startup like? Was it very optimistic? Did you have a lot of support, obviously from your wife, but did you have like financial support? Did you have like workers line? Like how did that startup period go? Was it easy? Was it hard? Harder than you thought? Easier than you thought?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I had some pretty big aspirations and put together a business plan that looked awesome on paper. And, I did have some good support, through friends and family. One, my best friend since I was in first grade have been telling me for, I don't know, 15 years at that point that I was, too good to be working for somebody else and I should do this
Mhm.
on my own. And my father-in-law was the CEO of a hospital not too far from Canton. So he had a lot of good managerial experience, kind of running a larger enterprise, which is what I wanted to create. So we put a plan together and went off and got running. And basically nothing happened the way that I thought it was going to from day one. Everything was a surprise. Everything, had a little bit of a quirk or, something that didn't quite go as I had planned, especially, the sales side of it. I thought we were just going to send out, some advertising and people are going to be like, oh, there's organic lawn care in Canton. I want
Yeah.
that. The response wasn't nearly what I thought it was going to be. So, lots of surprises along the way, but they were all good learning experiences and, helped us get to where we are today.
That's awesome. Thanks. Thanks for sharing that. So, what was the? I don't know if there's one particular thing. It could be multiple things, but what was the change or the turning point for you where okay, yeah, you started it out. It's really hard, and obviously now you have found a lot of success. You're very well plugged into the area. Like what was that change? Was it just persistence, or did you do something? Did you cut out something? Add something?
No, I think it was mostly just, kind of sticking with it. I mean, we
Mhm.
had, growth year after year and we're able to add to a customer base. And it just didn't, it didn't happen as quickly as, I initially anticipated. But, we were focused on providing a good quality product, and good customer service. And also, I was focused on trying to add some, really high quality individuals as I started to put together my team after the first couple of years. And then we kind of reached a point in 2018 where we finally were getting, a good foothold in the marketplace. And we were, had some brand identity that I don't think I could have, purchased for $1 million in
Mm.
year one. And finally, people, I would go around to different places and they're like, oh, you work for Greener Grass. I've seen your trucks around. And, nobody saw our trucks around the first year or two because there was only one of them, and people just kind of started to figure out who we were. And then I think from there, we really started to get some traction after that point.
So I know you're obviously now that you've been a part of the community, you're in there. One thing that I've learned about you and your company is that you're very connected to the community outside of just work. So yes, obviously you're providing lawn care services, but you're also very involved in your community, whether it's sponsoring. I know you sponsor a bunch of nonprofits, like you sponsor sports, local sports teams, and can you talk to me about like where those aspirations came from, like why you're connected and what that's really done for not just the greener grass brand, but done for you, done for your community, and done for the people that work with you.
Sure. Yeah, I don't really know what it's done for the Greener Grass brand necessarily. And
Mm,
that's, never been the motivation behind it. And it's mostly just, kind of how I was raised by my parents and, the influence from my grandparents, to be a good human being and,
Mhm.
try and spread, good things and positivity throughout your space in the world. And it's something that I look around. There's a lot of people that are in less fortunate positions, than I am, or even the people that work for us, or and when I see that, if there's an opportunity for us to help, it just seems like a natural thing to do. For me, as a personal standpoint, greener grass has been a vessel, if you will, to just be able to do that, on a larger scale than I would have been if I was still a project manager, at that old company. So as we've grown and we've scaled, we have made it a priority year after year to just get more involved and, find more organizations that we feel a good connection to and figure out, what their mission is and, different things that we can do to help them, achieve their goals.
So if other people are wanting to get similarly connected in their areas, what kind of process like do you I know you said that you okay, you want to find ones that speak to you and have values that you share in. Is there a particular method or way that you find them? Are they like friends of friends? Are they things you research? Do they come to you? Like how does that go about? Because I know a lot of people, especially successful business owners, want to give back. It's just a matter of how and where. So how do you come across the people that you support?
I mean, in our case, a lot of it was just, happened kind of organically through friends that we know. One charity that we love to support is St. Maldrick, and that's a nationwide, organization for childhood cancer research. And the folks who founded the local chapter happen to be good friends of my parents. And I happen to be good friends with, one of their children. And then our kids have also played sports together on various teams over the year.
Mhm.
And so, that was just a very natural connection. And then the Sophie Bowl is another one that we started sponsoring recently. And that was, kind of a real natural fit for us because they support families in the area whose kids are going through issues with congenital heart defects. And I
Mhm.
don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but both of my children were born with congenital heart defects. And
Okay.
they had multiple heart surgeries, and we are very fortunate to have had a better outcome than a lot of other families that go through that do. And so that was when I found out about that organization. Early on in my business ventures, we didn't have extra funds and means to help out, but they were on my list of people that I wanted to contact as we got more successful. So pretty much every organization that we work with and we support has some sort of connection of that nature where either we know the people or it's something that has touched us personally, that's created that motivation.
Mhm. Well, thanks for sharing that. I know that's obviously something that's near and dear to you, especially like the heart issues that your children have gone through. Obviously, as you mentioned, not everybody is as fortunate with the outcome. So obviously, like very happy that your children are, and I love to see that you do have a personal connection with what you're supporting. So I think that's great. Yeah, if you find something that that's very near and dear to you, get involved with that and see how you can support, especially once you become established enough. Doesn't really matter your industry, whether you're in the green industry or not. You can definitely be giving back to those
Right.
that are less fortunate. So I love that your entire involvement in your community. It's very apparent. I follow you on Facebook and I see like the posts you do and keep it fun. Being a lawn care company does not have to be boring. So I love that you kind of make it worth following you on there, but also like now people know you in the area and they know your values, they know your heart on everything, and so yeah, that's great. So just getting back to the early days, if you had to give any just quick insight into a problem that you had, like an early problem and something that you wish that older you would have been able to help with. Is there anything in particular that like, man, I wish we would have done this differently or I wish we would have done this faster?
Hmm. It's a good question. I don't usually think about what older me would say to younger me.
And I get it. The whole like, oh, I have no regrets. I would never have gotten to where I'm at had I done anything differently. But obviously, there are going to be people that struggle, and I mean, the industry's tough. It's very competitive, and I know with your persistence that you found a lot of success, and that's what I'm trying to kind of help with is like you're not going to find success. It's not likely you're going to find success overnight. So people are going to be running into problems. So I didn't know if there was anything in particular that it took a while to
Yeah.
resolve, but now looking back on it, you're like, "Ah, I could have just done this and it would have."
Well, I mean, it's kind of ironic, I guess, that you're asking that question and we're on this podcast together. But and I've kind of conveyed it to you. We've honestly had a lot of frustrations over the years finding the right partner in the digital marketing space. Helping to get our organic search traffic and paid search traffic where it needs to be. And honestly, I feel like while we've experienced a lot of success over the years, I feel like we've left a lot on the table
Mhm.
and, kind of missed some opportunities, by not having, the right partner in place or letting, some poor partnerships, linger on too long.
Mhm.
And, so I wish that I would have had, maybe a little bit tighter pulse on that and just kind of a better understanding of, how some of that stuff was working, why it's working, why it wasn't working. And, some of the questions that I've asked you during our relationship, just wanting to have, a better understanding of,
Yeah.
how all that functions, because I know it can have a huge impact on a business as it has with ours, but I also feel like it could have had a much bigger impact if we would have had things in a better place earlier on.
Yeah. And that's always a weird spot for a business owner in your position to be in because, um, I mean, just the green industry as a whole, it's kind of looked as a pretty blue collar industry, like hands on out in the field sort of thing. And then you have the whole tech part of it, which is very, very important in driving where a majority of your potential leads live. But at the same time, you have to focus on your business, but you know the importance of this. So you kind of have to do this balance of knowing enough or asking enough questions. And as you said, kind of keeping your thumb on the pulse of all of that. So it is really important. And I think good proper communication of any kind of partnership, whether it's digital marketing or something else, like maybe a vendor or something, like or maybe a contractor when the weather's perfect out. Having good, transparent communication, I mean, it's super important across all of those. So, do you have, do you like maybe standard operating procedures? Like, how do you stay so communicative to everybody? Like, do you have like weekly meetings, daily, like monthly meetings? Like, how do you communicate with your team, your vendors, your partners?
Yeah, I mean, we have, as far as our team goes, we don't really, do a whole lot of work in the winter around here because we're not in the snow removal industry.
Mhm.
But when we're in season, we have a morning meeting every day with our production team, with all of our technicians that go out into the field and all of our folks that help, manage those guys. And, usually lasts about 10 or 15 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer. It's really the only time of the day where we have all of those folks in the building at the same time. So it's a great opportunity to, make sure that everybody's on the same page, go over any new business, address any, questions or concerns that came up from the previous day, that a client maybe asked one of our guys that he didn't know the answer to, different things like that. And, just a good time to get everybody together and, kind of lighten the air and make sure everybody's in a good mood and about to go have a good day. And then as far as our management team goes, we try to get together every week and, go over, new business, how things are going out in the field, what our plans are, how our production schedule is looking for a particular round of service, how it's looking for, the next round of service, through the end of the year. Are we on track to hit our goals as far as all that goes?
So you obviously have a really good and talented team around you now. Early on, or even now, have you run into any issues with hiring, retaining people?
Yeah, I mean, we had some issues back in 2020 and 2021. The labor pool at that
Mhm.
point, was not great. We've been very fortunate the last couple of years as far as um, the employees that we've been able to bring on board here and, and retain, but we put a pretty high premium on, finding the right people and trying to take good care of them and make sure that they're happy. We onboard a new employee. We tell them pretty much first thing when they walk in the door on day one that part of their job is to spread positivity throughout greener grass. And part of their job is to make sure that everybody else that works here is, easily able to enjoy their day at work. And that's kind of one of our core principles that we really, try and get people to buy into, and from there we can just build on top of that and make sure that we have a good culture in place for everybody. So they don't feel like they have to go to work every day, but it's a place that they actually want to come because they enjoy being here.
Yeah, I saw some pictures on your Facebook page of like just you and the team out at a bar just drinking together. So I think it's great, just kind of building that camaraderie and as you said, like not making it a thing like oh I have to go to work today, but get to be around the rest of their team. Um, One really important thing that I see a lot of businesses in the green industry unfortunately do, and I get that you have to do this early on, is the owner themselves are answering phone calls, and I get that at a lower scale. Obviously, that's doable. Did you used to do that like when you first started out, like when some like whether you had a website or whatever, business cards, your trucks, wraps, your the numbers on there? Did it used to just go directly to your cell phone?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're about to begin our 14th year of providing service for customers. The first 2 years that Greener Grass existed, I was the only guy here. So I did any and every job that needed to be done, customer service calls, new sales calls,
Mhm.
scheduling, routing, production, all of that stuff. And then as we've scaled over the years, I've always just kind of self-reflected on, what I think I should be doing, how I should be spending my time, to be most beneficial to the growth of the company, and then figuring out, different things that I should be entrusting and delegating to other people. And, slowly just kind of, build out our corporate structure, based on those needs, year after year.
So, at what point did you get somebody in place to start managing calls? Because it seems like, and I have this discussion with business owners all the time that are still actively picking up calls. Is like, okay, well, I got to hire somebody that's going to be so expensive to for just somebody to pick up a call and send them to me anyway. So, like, when did you get somebody in place along your journey, and then with that, what did that ultimately do for you? Like, what did that free up?
So after year two, I called one of my friends, Matt Yoder, who I worked with at the previous landscape company. He had moved on to a different job, and I called him, told him what I was up to. He kind of knew that I was going to be doing it, and we had stayed in touch. And I talked him into quitting his job and coming to work for me. And he took over all the infield production, heading into year three, so that I could focus on growing the business and sales and that sort of stuff. And then we hired another one of his buddies to be our second technician, and that was kind of all while we were still operating out of my house. And then at the beginning of the year, I guess the end of year four, and we bought some property and moved out of the house and set up some offices. And at that point is when I first hired someone to help with the administrative duties of the business and start to answer the phone, and her name's Heather. She still works here, 8 years
Awesome.
later, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And honestly, that was like one of the biggest pivotal moments in the business where I didn't, you know, Matt and Heather were now talking to the customers mostly because Matt kind of evolved over the years with us, and
Mhm.
he used to spray lawns and now he doesn't anymore. And so they were scheduling, they were routing, they were talking to clients, they were, talking on sales calls. And I was still somewhat involved in that, but I wasn't, married to it. And that allowed me to spend a lot more time, helping to, build out the facility that we've moved into, purchasing trucks and equipment and doing that more efficiently, more product research and purchasing and things like that. And just overall, business development, from kind of a hands off standpoint. So I, I see a lot of people on social media groups, kind of having those conversations about when it's the right time to do it. And I personally didn't feel like the business was in a financial standpoint necessarily to support that.
Mhm.
But I mean, literally within a couple of weeks of making that decision and having Heather jump on board with us, it was, just such a breath of fresh air to not have to worry about that stuff. So
Yeah.
anybody who's wondering if they should do that or not, and if they're ready to take that leap, I would 1,000%, just advise them to take the leap, because once they do it, they'll never regret it.
Yeah. That's great advice. That's great advice. You mentioned that you see that question kind of being brought up in social media groups. So what kind of social media groups are you part of? And is this probably, I'm assuming, on Facebook?
Yeah, yeah. On Facebook, there's different just groups that are kind of tailored, specifically to the green industry.
Mhm.
As a whole, there's some that are tailored more towards the fertilization and weed control space that we're in. And then some of the most beneficial ones are for different CRM softwares, and I'm in a couple of those. We've been a Service Autopilot subscriber since year one, and well, since the end of year one actually. And so they've got a couple of different groups that we're a part of, and then even some other CRM softwares that we don't actively use to manage our business, but there's still good conversations happening,
Mhm.
in those spaces with all different size business owners, and it's just it's fun to see the different questions that come up, from guys that are, still barely making any money to, companies that are making $20 million a year. Everybody's got good perspectives and, good feedback that you can learn from.
Yeah. I obviously a digital marketer, even though I especially work with the green industry, I still have to keep up to date on the latest in digital marketing trends. So I mean, I'm parts of social media groups in the digital marketing space. I've joined other niches as well to kind of see what they're doing, like what they're talking about, see what I could bring kind of back into our niche and our space. It is really cool to see some questions and answers that one I would not normally think about, but also like take away, offer some advice. It's really important to, in my opinion, to be parts of these groups. It kind of continues to stretch your mind, continues to allow you to grow and not get so focused just on where you're at locally and the knowledge around you, but to kind of feed it and provide to those that are everywhere. And like the people are learning new tips and tricks. So yeah, no matter the industry you're in, I think it's really, really important to get connected in these groups, um, even if you're just kind of prowling them and just reading. But obviously, there is a big benefit to providing. Do you ever kind of like put in your 2 cents in anything, or are you just kind of prowling those social media things?
No, no. I mean, especially, like the one for Service Autopilot, I'm probably, more active in that one,
Mm,
with people who have questions about how to use that platform, how to get the most out of it, and, different things like that. So I
mm,
love jumping in there and trying to answer questions and help people out in those groups. The other ones, more of a back seat and kind of the bigger, more industry wide one, but then you also mentioned, being involved in, you know, kind of different groups with within different industries that that you're not even directly working in. And that's one of my favorite things to do, is talk to business owners and people who are working in totally different industries, because there's so much crossover, just from a business standpoint, things you can learn from hospitality or restaurant, or a digital marketing person like yourself might say something that strikes me, and I'm like, that's his approach, directly for his industry, but there's something that I can take away from that
mhm.
and, plug into what we're doing, with lawn care.
Yeah. So, all right. So with greener grass, you have the focus on organics, so safe for family and pets. What does that ultimately mean? Because I see signs, like people have the yard signs like don't get in here until the grass is dry. Um, I see often, I think I'm seeing it more and more often. It's like safe for pets, and then on the tiniest letters, once dry. So what is organic and being safe for family and pets, one, ultimately mean, and then two, how did you settle in on that? Is there a personal reason? Is it just because like, hey, everyone's looking for it? Like, what's the history behind that, and how'd you get there today?
Well, what it means, unfortunately, is different to everyone. And that was kind of one of the problems that I identified. As I started doing research, I decided I wanted to get into the turf care, side of the green industry, and then started doing research into the products, and was, I was kind of researching this, from a business standpoint and, for, personal at my house. And like, the more I learned about what people were doing, I was like, I don't want that stuff on my yard.
Hmm.
We had a young kid at the time. My wife was pregnant with our second son. And so then I started, we were eating organic food, trying to live a healthy lifestyle. I've always kind of been, not like a environmentalist, but, wanting to, do my part to try and take care of the environment. So I started doing research and realized there were actually good products out there, to help folks achieve the results they wanted without using a bunch of dangerous chemicals on their yard. But nobody was really doing it. And it was just more of a matter of, lawn care was just born as a chemical industry
Hmm.
back in the 50s and 60s. And that's, kind of all that it ever was. But, nobody thought that, what they were putting on their yard was dangerous back then. Nobody thought that cigarettes were dangerous, back in
Yeah.
1972. And so that the industry just kind of evolved and there weren't a lot of people questioning it. So there wasn't really a lot of motivation for some of the industry giants to want to change what they were doing. And there was a little bit of a movement toward that, and I saw kind of an opportunity to be able to do something that I would feel good about at the end of the day, that I would want to bring home to my lawn at my house. And an opportunity to give people a safe, effective alternative to what every other company was offering.
So I'm really interested in like the science behind the organic part of it. So you say it's well, one, what is it? Like what is the difference versus like the, let's say, traditional? And what does it ultimately mean in the differences of like safety for pets, for family?
It really just depends on, I guess, the type of product that you're talking about. So there's kind of three different facets to what would go into a lawn care program. You got fertilizers and soil conditioners that help feed, the turf itself. And organic ones are going to work a little bit differently. They're going to provide some direct nutrition, which is what traditional products do. But we also use products that are going to be much more focused on feeding the microbes and the biology down in the soil. And whereas traditional fertilizers actually tend to deteriorate those beneficial organisms. So if we can take traditional fertilizers and organic fertilizers, one of them is going to kind of create this void mass of dirt, and it's going to be harder to grow a healthy plant. Over here, if we can get everything to flourish down in the soil, the natural reaction is, if you have a healthy soil system, that the plant growing in that is going to be healthy. Whether that's organic turf or organic strawberry, either one's going to be true. And then you have weed control products and insect control products. And those are, the two facets that go into it. They've been tied, through research to be more dangerous to off target species, rather than the fertilization inputs directly. So, we've got, organic products that we can use to control different types of broadleaf weeds. And then the chemical insecticides are really the most dangerous, facet of it, because a lot of those are actually going to work by, attacking the nervous system of the target pest. But then if they, get into the blade of grass and, someone's dog eats that blade of grass, then they can also attack the nervous system of that, mammal, which is not a good thing to have happen.
Yeah, so just kind of, I mean, it was concerning, but now it's embarrassing. My I have a lawn, and so my dogs go out in the backyard. They have a doggy door. They go out whenever they want. And just recently, I had to take my dog into the vet, emergency vet. He was having some real bad breathing issues out of nowhere. Brought him in. They did some tests, liver enzymes out through the roof, and a lot of investigation. And yeah, it turns out our lawn care company came a day early, and we didn't get a
Mhm.
warning on it. And my dog's pretty notorious for chewing on grass, and this is all kind of the assumption from the vet that he probably ate some grass, got an upset stomach, ate more grass to help his upset stomach, and it just kind of started spiraling. So yeah, he went into liver
Right.
failure
Oh,
over it.
wow.
So it was really bad. He's better now. So that's great.
That's
But yeah,
good.
that was a really scary couple moments. And so we actually just canceled that lawn care company and are now looking for an organic alternative because my wife and I are also pregnant, so we're gonna have a kid on the way, and we are hoping to
Congratulations.
be as thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, we're hoping to keep things as safe as possible for our growing family. So yeah, that was a real like, oh man, this is gonna be embarrassing to tell Scott.
Well, I mean, if we need to talk about a greener grass Tampa franchise, then
There
we
you
could
go.
do that at a later time.
Yeah, there we go. All right. So what are the next step for greener grass? Where do you see you guys grow? Like obviously you're growing, so is that just continue to stay in Canton and just branch out from there? Anything on the horizon? Any new service offerings? Like where do we see greener grass going in the, let's say, next year, next 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, so obviously started in the immediate Canton area, and it's kind of slowly stretched our reach from there. We're currently traveling about 45 minutes in any given direction, as long as the population density makes sense, and probably stick within that geographic area, for the next year or two, because I think there's a lot of opportunity to still grow and build density within our current service areas. Um, as you and I have talked about, over the last couple of years, we've added to our fertilization and weed control program. We started doing mosquito control programs, exterior pest control, and we offer those with 100% organic products as well. Which nobody else in the area is really providing that to the homeowners in this area. So for the time being, I think we might, plan to just kind of stay local here, and then, see if there is some opportunity down in Tampa, or, other areas that are a little bit closer to here, and, possibly expand beyond this market. The biggest key to doing that would be finding the right people to, to put in place to help, manage that and facilitate that. And that's been, one of the biggest challenges all along, is making sure that I've been very fortunate to find great people, to build out our leadership team, but doing that remotely is a whole new set of challenges that I haven't decided to take on quite yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it still sounds nice and fresh and exciting despite being well over 10 years now. So that's awesome. And I know you've been in the space for over 25. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a great way to keep it fresh. Obviously, if it's you're doing something you love, that's great. But if you can kind of have some aspirations, that makes it even more worthwhile to wake up every day and get after something. So cool.
Yep.
I'm really excited to see where you go. I know greener grass is going to continue to do great things. But yeah, so that pretty much wraps it up with today's podcast. So Scott, thank you for joining us. Highly recommend that you go and check Greener Grass's Facebook page. You can kind of see how Scott and his team interact with the community, kind of give back to it. Highly recommend that you also do that to your local area as well. As Scott said, get plugged into these social media groups. You're going to learn a lot more. You can stay fresh as far as knowledge goes. You can get other insights of things that you don't even think of. So I think that's going to be really important for everybody, especially in this industry. It's not a static industry. There are always growth opportunities and a way to stand out and go above and beyond with everything. So Scott, thanks again for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time. You're super knowledgeable, and yeah, I'm wishing you all the best. And I again really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, my pleasure, Matt. Thanks a lot for having me. It's always fun to chat with you,
Oh yeah.
and appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast on whatever channel that you're listening to this on. And we will be back for more episodes at a later date. All right. Peace out, y'all.